Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Expert Speaker Podcast. We have a very special guest today, Uli Iserloh from Big Boost Marketing, specializing in marketing, automation, and strategy for natural health practitioners. Welcome to the podcast, Uli.
Hey, Majeed, glad to be here and, super pumped about, talking shop about, how speakers can really amp up their marketing. And I know you and I travel in the same circles. So, very appreciative of what you do. And again, just prospects about talking about funnels. The other F word is what really gets me excited.
The other F word, funnels, amazing. So I met Uli speaking at a conference. Uli also spoke at this conference. And when I watched you on stage, Uli, I thought, this is not your first time. You had a great presentation. You had a great call to action. And you used the technology very well. As well as I've had a number of clients sing your praises, Uli, my clients being the functional medicine doctors and naturopaths who have hired you to build their websites. And I want to start with, let's start with the website for an entrepreneur. Okay, a lot of the people listening to this are also naturopathic healers, natural doctors, as well as we have entrepreneurs who speak as though, they're coaches, they're consultants, but they speak to build their business. Everybody needs to have a website. If we're starting from scratch today, what do we need in our website?
Yeah, so the way I approach marketing, which is very similar to what you're doing when you coach people on their speaking gigs, is obviously you have a message inside you that needs to be communicated to the right audience. And what we know is that it's not happening in a single touch point, in a single encounter, that person goes from starting to get to know you to actually saying, I want to become your patient, I want to become your client. And so what we need to create is really a nurture sequence. It's very much like dating. Attracting patients and clients is very much like dating. You have to look the part, you have to say the right things, and you got to get their contact details. No phone number, no first date, no second date, no third date. And it's the same with naturopaths, with integrative and functional medicine doctors. You need to get the person's email address so you can nurture them, that you can go on a number of dates before they feel comfortable enough to get maybe on a discovery call with you, or come to a workshop, or in any other way start to interact with you. And so importantly for a website is, yes, you could run your practice without a website and you just talk to enough people, and technically you don't need a website. But on the other hand, you're not legit if you don't have a website. Obviously, if you charge people $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, they want to know you're a legit business, and so you have to have a website. So that's sort of like the caveat that I always start out with.
But what would you say are the things that people look for to determine how legit? Would you say it's just some good photography and some good colors would do the trick? Or do you recommend people have certain elements like a blog?
Yeah, I think the most important part is, if you have just pretty graphics and your message is not resonating, you lost. If you have decent messaging and poor graphics, you can still convert. So ideally, you want to look the part and you want to say the right things. And so this is like in dating. You evaluate your ideal patients, you know exactly who you want to work with, but your patients are looking at you as the ideal practitioner. So what is it that they want to see in a practitioner that would make them say, yes, I want to work with you? And they're really evaluating that against the backdrop of all their past interactions with other health practitioners, maybe other allopathic doctors, family practitioners, specialists. And they're thinking about, well, why have these people not been able to help me? Why am I still sick? And so what they're looking for in you is explaining why there was no way in the world why these other doctors could actually help you, because they go about it the wrong way, and how you're different. So in this case, different is better. And so you have to really communicate these two pieces for people to appreciate why they should choose you. Why should they ignore the past interaction with doctors, and why is this time different?
Very good, Uli. So I was surprised that the messaging is more important than the graphics. I would have thought pretty picture converts better than right language.
What I would say there is really, when you have 100 people come to your website, only 2 are probably, referrals, or are warm, are ready to transact with you. And so those people just need the mechanics. What's the service? Where do I sign up? How do I move forward? And that's where pretty pictures and the basic information works. But then what are you doing with the other 98 people that are on the fence, that are not yet ready to move forward? And this is where we need to introduce a concept that we call lead magnets. These are
Yeah.
magnets for leads that attract a person onto your mailing list, so that you now have their email, and you can now communicate with them with an email sequence over a couple of days to really make your case much more forcefully, and you can deliver content. You don't have to be resigned to that single interaction when they come to your website. They're not going to read all the pages on your website. They're making a split level decision whether they want to continue reading it. And my goal is for a website visit to opt in over becoming a client. Let's just get to a first date.
Yeah.
Let's agree on that versus popping the question, will you marry me? And so I feel most people that have pretty graphics and just schedule a appointment, that's like popping the question when you haven't even been on a first date. It
Right.
feels too rushed. And for some people, 2%, 3% of your audience, that's perfectly fine. But the other 97 to 98% will be put off by your pacing. You're too forceful. You're coming on too strong.
Very good insight. You work with dozens of healthcare practitioners right now. What are you finding is the most successful lead magnet?
So ultimately, the lead magnet, and all you clinicians out there will understand this concept, it should be like a biomarker. You know that when they opt in for this lead magnet, by definition, that person is the ideal client. So knowing what specialties you practice, maybe it's gut health, maybe it's autoimmunity, maybe it's hormone, that lead magnet needs to attract only that person and reject everyone else. Because it's not helping you if you have everyone under the sun on your mailing list, but only a fraction of them feels that your messaging resonates with them. So I want to have a lead magnet, let's say 4 questions to ask whether bioidentical hormones are right for you. I know exactly this is a peri or menopausal woman looking at hormone replacement. She's concerned about XYZ, and she either has made the decision, is not happy with it, or she's about to make the decision. So I know very clearly who that person is and what that woman is interested in hearing from me. And so this goes back to, how can you send emails and get people interested or opening your emails? Well, you have to talk about stuff that's relevant to them. So I can't be talking about hormones and gut health and cognition. That woman that's concerned about bioidentical hormones, that's not what she's interested in. And so the lead magnet has to really identify the interest, the problem that your target avatar has, and then from there on, educate them on that topic. And so you can then think about, if your practice is in digestive health and autoimmunity, is it possible that a lead magnet can attract both audiences? That the autoimmune people will find something in the downstream educational email sequence, as well as the digestive health people. Now, if the determination is that you're doing chronic pain and gut health, and there's very little crosstalk between these 2 avatars, then you would have to have different lead magnets and different nurture sequencing following the lead magnet.
And with 2 audiences, 2 offers, 2 lead magnets, do you recommend 2 websites or just one?
No, I don't like to split attention across different platforms, because then, it gets infinitely more difficult to handle. So I like to figure out an umbrella message on the website that can handle both. And so for our target audience that is mostly in chronic disease, it could be, a different way to tackle chronic wellness issues or something. And then it could be whether you're suffering from digestive health issues, autoimmune issues, or hormone imbalances. Our mission at XYZ Clinic is to, address your chronic disease issues so that you finally can get back to living the life that you deserve, or something like that. So now we have the chronic disease umbrella that now accommodates chronic pain, it accommodates digestive health, autoimmunity, hormones, etc.
Okay,
Another
so
great example is, like, if you're in chronic pain and you're an acupuncturist, again, talk about chronic pain as the umbrella, and then have your different modalities under that.
oh, neat. Okay, so lead magnet per problem, basically.
Exactly, yeah.
Got it. Okay, let's talk about technology and speaking engagements. Let's start with live speaking engagements on stage, and then we'll talk about webinars.
Great.
Okay.
Yeah.
So live on stage, there's the technology that you're using, like, say, for example, PowerPoint. And then there's the technology that you're using for people to opt in. And I'm curious to know if you recommend a certain platform or text or all that. And then there might even be, Uli, some advice or strategy that you would offer people ahead of the conference. Like, what do we do like a month before? Do you recommend like doing some sort of lead magnet before or
Yeah.
after the event to really maximize that stage time and that opportunity? So tell me what sort of advice do you have around technology around speaking?
Yeah, again, just when you are at a live event, your goal as a speaker on that platform is to convert as many people onto your mailing list. Now, obviously, if it's your event, then you already have their emails from registering for the event. But if you are a featured speaker on somebody else's stage, then depending on the arrangement that you can have with the conference organizer, obviously there's certain ways you can pitch a lead magnet or a free resource. And in the context of your signature talk, obviously you're leading people to some conclusion, and what is the next step in your talk. You lead people to believe certain things. You have shown them certain stories that amplify and edify your expertise, but then at the end the person in the audience asks, okay, I love what Majeed is saying, now what? What's the next step? And so you want to essentially provide them with a lead magnet, a checklist, something that is relevant in the context of your talk that gets them to opt in to your list. Again, you want to make this as irresistible as you can so that the largest amount of people, when they hear it, they want to opt in for this. So again, an example, if you were dealing with autism, a lead magnet title like 4 things your autistic child wished her teachers knew. I mean, which parent of an autistic child would walk away from a lead magnet like that could provide the answer, the magic bullet of how to create a better academic experience for that child? And so you really want to spend a lot of time based on what is the title of your lead magnet to make it really so irresistible that more than 60% of the audience in your talk is actually whipping out their phone and then getting on your list. And there's 2 ways to do it. You could just give people on one of the slides, present the lead magnet and then have a URL, and people can go to that URL and then just opt in as if they came from Facebook or any other platform. So that's definitely very doable for any practitioner. And then maybe more sophisticated way is to doing it opt-in by text. And the reason why people do that is that oftentimes when you are at a conference with thousands of people, internet is really slow. So when you tell people, hey, opt in for this lead magnet, and the page is not loading because everyone is on there, then usually when you opt in by text, the text is usually able to handle this. So you can text a certain keyword, Majeed, to 661125, and then essentially that puts you on a mailing list. And there's different technologies like Call Loop, really any number of platforms based on your email CRM. Let's say if you're on Infusionsoft or you're on ActiveCampaign, they recommend which text opt-in solution plays nicely with your platform. You buy this, you buy that short code, and then essentially you can tell people on that slide, hey, you can go to this URL, or if your internet is not working right now, just text this keyword to that number, and you'll get the guide. So that is like the way how people get on your mailing list. They would then receive a welcome email with that lead magnet that you promised them. And then obviously they are queued up for additional emails to get people from consuming the lead magnet into the next step. And so the lead magnet is really the bridge between the speaking engagement, getting on your list, getting educated to what's the next thing. What's the backend program? Is there a webinar that you want them to watch? Is it a workshop you want them to attend? Is it a course that you want them to buy? So as a speaker, what you really have to think about is like, okay, what are you presenting on stage with your signature talk? What's the lead magnet to get people onto your list? How do you educate them to what goal? What's the next thing that you want them to serve with? What do they need from you beyond the lead magnet?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I hadn't thought about the slow internet piece.
Yeah,
And
that's certainly a thing. You know, we did this at the IFM conference where there was like thousands of people, and for one of the IFM faculty members that were presenting, we put a campaign together that got hundreds of people to opt in for a lead magnet. And obviously, we knew they were interested in the topic. They had seen the talk, and so there's a lot of preeminence that is already riding on that lead magnet. People know, love, and trust you to a significant degree at that point already. So now you just need to have the email sequence to push them in the right direction to take the next step.
cool. Let's talk about webinars. You recommend your clients use webinars?
I think you have to have some way to leverage pre-education. You know, as a integrative naturopathic or functional medicine practitioner, your job number one is to explain what it is that you do and get people familiar with your services and why they are better relative to conventional or allopathic medicine. And so you need to create that level of engagement. Again, a talk at a conference is great. You have 60 minutes of undivided attention. That is essentially the equivalent of a webinar. It works even better because it's in person and they can read your energy. But a webinar is really an automated way to deliver 40 to 50 minutes of good education that really gets people over the hump and decide, yes, I want to connect with this practitioner and learn more. And again, so from the lead magnet, people are opting in, they're seeing a thank you page. And my preference is to have on the thank you page after lead magnet opt-in a short video that essentially tees up your webinar. And the idea of that video on the thank you page is really that 100% of the people opting in will see that video, but only 25% of the people on your email list will open your email. So if you don't push your core message in that thank you video on that thank you page, you already lost 75% of your audience. And so this is like a power move for anybody listening that, you know, the thank you page after opt-in is one of the most underutilized real estate properties on your website. Because again, people have just raised their hand saying, hey, I want this piece of content. I have this problem. I want this guide. So what better way to sort of saying, now that you have the guide, I want to serve you even more, and I have an on-demand presentation to help you go even deeper on the topic of the guide that you just downloaded. And so in this presentation, we're going to go on deeper on this, and this topic so that you understand how to do X, Y, Z. And again, this is where you can then really, you know, the person that will see the video saying, well, why not watch the webinar? I'm already here. This is interested. This is related. This is even more value than I wanted. And that's how they get into your webinar.
Uli, so great insight there. So the thank you page after the opt-in gets 100% viewership versus the email open after the opt-in, it only gets 20%.
Well, you know, it depends on your email list, but, you know, these are sort of like industry specifics, anywhere between 15 and 25, 30%. Whatever the numbers are, you're losing more than half your eyeballs in that transition when you move from a web browser environment into email. And typically when people are opting in, they stay in the browser. They're not going immediately back to their email. And so they will discover your email hours later. And hopefully they open up the email if you have the right subject line and you keep sending the right follow-up emails. But we want to do everything to build a relationship. So going back to the analogy of the dating analogy, they opted in, so they gave you their phone number or their email. Now they're on the thank you page. This is your first date. So what do you do on the first date? You're like, you present yourself from your best side. You talk about what they want to hear. You share a little bit deeper,
right.
and you queue up the second date. And the second date is your webinar. And so obviously the goal of the first date is to get to the second date. So you're essentially leading with value, you're leading with educational content, but you also make your case why they should not miss out on the webinar.
Here's a real specific question about the recorded webinar. Do you recommend having it as a video that people can play and pause, or do you recommend it as the live replay that says starting in 5 minutes and you can't pause it?
Yeah, I am a fan of letting people not skip ahead, so remove the scrubber so they can start and stop, but they can't fast forward. So that's important to me because they need to hear everything that's in your signature talk and in your
Yeah.
signature webinar.
Yeah.
And if they skip ahead, then they don't have the right information to come to the conclusion that you want them to have at the end. And so for that reason, I like to disable that feature. Now, I'm a big fan, and I've tested this myself. I've tested, what about a live webinar that happens 10 days in the future?
Yeah.
You know, how many people can I get on that webinar and actually make it to the end of that webinar, as
Yeah.
opposed to just in time? It's like, we're starting in 10 minutes,
Yeah.
you know, join now. And again, you see some people dropping off there versus version 3. Hey, the moment you click the button, you're actually seeing yesterday's recording from the webinar, and you can start right there.
Yeah.
And I've compared all 3 scenarios, and what I found is the option watch yesterday's webinar replay, and you watch right away, because people start watching the webinar and not dropping off. They're intrigued enough by your opening lines. And again, this is why it's so important to really nail the mechanics of your signature talk, that you capture people's interest right away and suck them in with the story so that they want to stay on to the end. So what we found is that if people hear your introduction and they're hooked, there's a higher likelihood that they actually make it to the end over all the other scenarios. And so I'm not the only one that have actually tested this out. Jason Flatline, who's powering Joe Polish's and the Genius Network webinars, he has done the same analysis, and he came to the same conclusion. And this guy has sold over $1 billion in sales to webinars. So, he knows that that is what works.
I'm so glad I asked, and I'm so glad you had an answer. So on demand, pre-recorded, pausable, but not scrubbable.
Yeah.
Beautiful. And you mentioned something so important, which is the opening words are so important. If you don't hook them in the opening words of a webinar, you're losing them.
Yeah.
Very cool. All right. So we've covered live speeches, we've covered webinars, we've covered websites. How about you, Uli? Do you host your own live events for your clients where they come together and you train with your flip chart?
Yeah, we have not implemented this yet, but it's coming in 2020.
Cool.
The idea really being is nothing beats nose to nose, toes to toe, as you know, and that's the most powerful of communication, because when you're on stage or when you're at a workshop, there's so much more going on versus just the audio and the visual. There's like the languaging, the energy. There's like so much more that gets communicated that makes people feel comfortable and makes people realize that you are the true expert that you are. They get to know, love, and trust you very quickly to then be ready to take the next steps. And so this is why live speaking engagements, whether you're speaking on other people's stages, whether you host your own workshops or your own webinars, is so important for practitioners to get the message out. In terms of, it's part of a business model that, there is the push to be more scalable, going away from working one-on-one with people to working within a group environment. And there's very powerful science behind it that's actually a better way to achieve transformation. An example in the healthcare space is Terry Waltz with her MS reversal. And she used to work one-on-one with patients, and then in the Iowa Veterans Administration, she actually did group programs, and she found that veterans got much better outcomes in a group program versus in one-on-one, because there's peer-to-peer interaction, there's reinforcing, there's accountability. And so what we see, across the board is that moving towards group structures is powerful. So, if you're thinking about hosting your own event or your workshop, this is definitely something that is very powerful. And you just have to think from a business perspective, how do I actually get people the transformation that they desire at a workshop? What's humanly possible at an event? For instance, for me, we did events around building an entire lead magnet and opt-in funnel. So deciding on a lead magnet topic, writing the lead magnet report, creating the videos, creating the email sequence, and do it in one event. And even in a 2-day event, it was way too much to accomplish. So, you have to think about logistically, how can I accomplish this in a way that people feel jazzed when they leave your workshop? And so the structure that we arrived at is having a lead-in course over several weeks so that people could pick the topic, that they could start writing, that they get feedback, and then they come to the event for finishing school, where we can really dial it in, do the videos, do the things that technically they feel they can't do.
Yeah, that's good. How about speaking for you, Uli? What are you thinking about speaking in 2020? Are you looking at it like, you want to do a speech a month and be traveling on the road, or you picked like your 4 favorite events you're going to speak at?
Yeah, for me, it's obviously I like stages that have the right target audience. And so this is true with any marketing. If you're in the wrong room with the wrong people, then, whatever you have to say, even if it's amazing, will not resonate with them. So I'm looking to speak in front of integrative naturopathic functional medicine practitioner events. Oftentimes I'm the lone marketer in a sea of clinical talk. So I like that juxtaposition to provide a little bit different content. And I'm always looking for speaking gigs to get the message out, because that is really my big why. I started out in the pharmaceutical industry as one of those pair of hands in the lab trying to create a drug. And then I realized that this is not a very leveraged way to impact human health. And so my big why is to get more practitioners to level up their marketing, get their message out in their community so that they can help more patients get the help they need.
Cool. Uli, if you had one thing to say to my audience of entrepreneurs, speakers, natural doctors, what would you leave them with? And then where can we find out more about you? And I hope you have a lead magnet for us.
Yeah. So I think the one thing that I want you to remember always is, and I call it the practitioner curse. And, as a health practitioner, you pride yourself on being able to figure things out. With your patient cases, the more complex, the more you probably, salivate over the case to be able to figure it out. And that works in the clinical setting, but it really kills your forward momentum when it comes to marketing and your business. And so you have to really think about, should you really be the one building your own website? Should you be the one doing all the technology? And you have to really be cognizant, nope, I'm responsible for my message and the delivery, but the technology and the execution and implementation should be handled by somebody else. And again, it's sort of like the analogy with filing your taxes. Are you actually studying the tax code each and every year to figure out how to file your taxes? Or do you say, this is not part of my business, I'm hiring an accountant, here's my W-2, my expenses, please file my tax return. And I want you to think the same way about technology and, whatever else goes into marketing your practice, that, partner with the right expert that have a proven track record working with people just like you. So there's a lot of marketers out there saying, yes, we can build your lead magnet. We can do all of these things technically, but they have never worked in the integrative functional medicine world. And so their idea of a lead magnet and what needs to happen and the languaging is very far off from where it needs to be. And so this is where our core specialty lies at Big Boost Marketing. We are only focused on integrative functional and naturopathic medicine doctors, help them with their messaging, with their tech implementation, with their strategy. And to find out more, simply go to bigboost.marketing. There's no .com, bigboost.marketing, and we have a number of free guides depending on where you are in the process. If you want to learn more about lead magnets, if you want to learn more about e-commerce or email marketing systems. So we have a ton of guides there. We have a ton of free training to help you move the needle. And again, if there's anything else that you need help with, we're available everywhere online under Uli Iserloh. That's my handle. And so would love for you to join me on Instagram, where I share a lot of information on a daily basis about marketing your integrative medicine practice.
Thank you so much, Uli Iserloh, bigboost.marketing, for all of the guides and resources there. Check it out. Check them out on Instagram, Uli Iserloh. Thank you so much for being here. And thank you, dear listener, for listening to this episode of the Expert Speaker Podcast. We'll see you on the next episode. Thank you for listening to the Expert Speaker Podcast. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and leave us a rating so that more people can discover the Expert Speaker Podcast and so more people can be empowered to share their message. Be sure to go to www.expertspeaker.com and take the masterclass to learn how to grow your business and make money speaking. It's totally free and will change your business. If you're ready to work with Expert Speaker, you can apply. Just go to expertspeaker.com/apply and someone from our team will be in touch with you to help you grow your business with public speaking. That's expertspeaker.com/apply. We'll see you in the next episode.